And my question for art is, I guess, the idea of art being, or design being an expression of the community in itself. But unfortunately, you know, do you see this dichotomy? And I think we discussed this privately, the idea about the difference, right, between the artist and the celebrity. And unfortunately today, we see a lot more celebrities versus artists who create and express. So what are your both thoughts on that?
Well, celebrity is a byproduct. I would say byproduct because it's a, when you have a product, when you have a CD, for example, or a new single, or iTunes downloads, whatever, you have to promote. That means you have to buy airtime, advertising space to make it known. Sometimes now you can buy ad space in Facebook, even YouTube. In a conventional way, we buy ad space in newspapers, whether it's quarter page, depending on your budget as well. So when you are being promoted in that way, and then you go on radio and you talk, you know, the byproduct of that is that you become famous, you get known. Then somewhere along the way you become a celebrity. But that is like you know, it's when you do a cake. The cake has got many things in it, nice ingredients, and you buy it, there's nuts, there's carrots, whatever, but there's a glazing over it, and it's very sweet. That is celebrity. It's just the glazing over the actual thing. But in order to, it's important to have the cake with the glazing, because the glazing sells. Because, you know, when you look at it in the shops, you go like, wow, nice, man, very sweet. It's all very kind of shiny and all that. That's the way you sell it. You package it in that manner. But you need to have the right ingredients. When you bite into the cake, you do taste it, not just sugar, but you taste all the other components of the cake. So if it's a banana cake, you taste a bit of banana in it, not just sugar. You know, it's not like flat Coke. After, you know, Coke is flat, all you taste is sugar. So in a way, celebrity is like that. It's the glazing over it, but because by promoting in the media, you become a celebrity. But you need to have more than just the sweetness, because you are trying to connect and communicate, because any form of artwork is communication. Whether it's poetry, whether it's painting or music, theater, drama, movies, it's all about communication. What are you trying to say? What are you trying to speak to your audience? So this is where the integrity of the artist, the character of the artist comes in. Do we have more celebrities now? I think it's easier to be famous now with social media, especially being in a small country like Singapore. You appear in Berita Harian one day, tomorrow you go to Geylang, everybody knows you. Itu kan yang keluar khabar semalam kan? Because Singapore is small. You know, you appear in Berita Harian one time, everybody knows you the next day. You appear 7 times, they remember you forever. So it's also misleading, because just being famous alone is not enough. Doesn't mean you're good. That means you had a good promotion. But being good means you're able to sustain beyond your 3rd album, maybe. Sometimes these days, artists get dropped by record labels after 1 album because it doesn't sell. So again, the sustainability, and in order to sustain your career, in arts or in anything, it has to be some kind of integrity, like how you're saying, the integrity and honesty. People like Ramli Sarip, you know, has been around for 45 years in music. He's 63 now, I think. I've known him for about 20 years. M. Nasir from NAFA, you know, going up to Malaysia and all that. These are guys who's got a lot of things to say, and they've got something to contribute. So again, if you are honest, if you have something to say, then you stick with it. You know, you surpass being a celebrity. And being an artist is important than being a celebrity. Being an artist that is creative and contributing and communicating your works all the time with your audience. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very, if we answer very quickly, then I think we should open up to the floor. Being an artist is more important than being a celebrity. Learning is more important than getting the degree, which is the equivalent of celebrity status. I mean, if you do very well in your studies, Berita Harian will celebrate your success, and you will be famous, right? And this idea of long distance running, being able to more than survive in the longer term, that's really important. Right? So I think let's value what is important, and the byproducts will somehow come. And the other question is, if it doesn't come, is it the end for you? You know, this is the university admissions season. There are many applicants with results which are, you know, they could be missing just by a few points to gain entry, because university numbers cannot be that big for all kinds of reasons. But is it the end of the world if a person doesn't get into university? Does it mean that your creativity stops? Does it mean that your learning stops? Right? So I think that's a very profound statement. Being an artist, learning is more important than being a celebrity. Let's open up to the floor.
Okay. Wow, 2 hands. Okay. Mics.
All right. Hi everyone, my name is Sharif. The first question will go to Art. Actually, it's not so much of a question, partly a question and partly a confession. I think I owe you $20 because during my younger days, I have been incidentally pirating your song because I've downloaded it and resend it to my friends. I'm like, halal, okay, selamat. Yeah, so, but I do have to say, the thing is, when I first heard your songs, I didn't know that you were a fellow Singaporean. I would have thought this is an amazing artist who really know his art form. I mean, lyrics are like, andai esok aku menjadi tanah, sudikah engkau menjadi bunga menghiasi dadaku. That's like, cair. Okay, for those who don't understand, I'll try and terjemah, try and do Google Translate here.
And
if tomorrow I become and tomorrow if I become become dust, are you willing to be the flower that decorates my heart?
Decorates my tomb. I think that's the meaning.
Oh, okay.
But anyway.
Okay, but anyways, that's my anything. So the question is, that's the thing. When I listen to your music, your songs, I never really had a notion that you're a Singaporean, and I would just say someone who really knows his art. So as a Singaporean artist or would-be celebrity, would someone should try and aim to be a global artist? I mean, go global from day one, or just try and position yourself as a Singaporean artist?
Okay, well, is that your question?
That's the
question. We'll take one more question over here before.
Hello, Mr. Art. My question is, you were talking about supporting local, but I feel that it's quite difficult because sometimes I feel like the locals can get quite expensive. So how are we supposed to support the local when their prices can get expensive? And is it because they're expensive because of the lack of production support? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, is that it? Yeah, question. Okay, I'll answer your question. I think most importantly, you have to be an artist. You have to be honest. Not aiming. When I started playing music, I did not really think I want to be famous. I just needed to write a song. The first song I wrote was because I was in Sec 2. I liked this girl in Sec 4, so she didn't like me. So I heartbroken. I wrote a song. So that's how it all began. So it was honest at that time. I was heartbroken at 14. What do you know? But. So and then it went on from there, and then I got inspired also by people like at the time M. Nasir came out with an album, Kembara, with his band. So I was inspired by these icons. In a way, it's like a village system where you have older brothers, uncles that you cannot look up to. So I was lucky. I had people that I was looking up to who I got close with, like Rami Sari, M. Nasir, people like Eddie Mazuki. These are guys who were older than slightly older than me, and they were in the business. So I learned from them by observing, rather than I'm a self-taught musician. So trial and error. So the thing is, you need to be realistic in like what do you really want to do. Like if you are not famous, would you still do it? Because if you're just aiming to be famous, then Storm is there. Storm can make you famous very fast. So, you know, so yeah, I think it's important to be realistic and be honest and learn your craft. These days, especially this tech. If Apple came out in my time, I would have like maybe lots and lots more of albums. These days, there's so many stuff that's making it easy. So again, the technology is there. It's the human side, the creativity, which any form of algorithm may not be able to produce. So, you know, again, yeah. So study the greats, the classics, whether it's Indonesian writers, if you're writing in Malay, I was lucky we were exposed to Usman Awang and Rendra, big names in poetry, and that's where we get that Nusantara movement came from that particular angle. And okay, is it okay? Yeah. Okay, for your question, I think, what do you mean by locally expensive as compared to pricing-wise, as compared to foreign? I'm not familiar. I know in Malaysia, the local product is cheaper than an international product. In Singapore, I think a CD now costs, I don't know, $15 to $18. And so I'm not sure what angle you're coming from. Because if you buy from iTunes, it's a flat rate. Whether you buy Michael Jackson or Lady Gaga or you buy at Fazil, it's the same price. But yeah, there is cost of production involved. Sometimes, especially now, a lot of artists are entrepreneurs. In fact, this current situation, a lot of artists have to become entrepreneurs. They have to learn it because no one's going to do it for you. So I think sometimes they do have costs and end up having to maybe spend a bit more in terms of trying to sell. But usually, I think local artists, they're selling about $15 to $18 per CD. And if you buy it on iTunes, you end up spending about maybe $8 to $10 or less. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, my name is Jocelyn, and this question is for Art. So with regards to music, in the recent context, like we have some upcoming local artists, if you have heard of them, like Gentle Bones and the Sam Willows, which are really popular among the young people. So these people actually, they started off with their own modern covers of the pop songs and such, and eventually they have developed their own style and their own sound. Yeah, so I was wondering, to what extent do you think that these new artists have the potential to represent Singapore and to have that Singaporean pride in all the youngsters in Singapore and as such, like to represent our country in the music that they make? Yeah, and I was wondering if you said that currently, like the other really famous artists like JJ Lin and as such, they actually appeal to a specific ethnic group, but for this, they appeal to a specific age group, which are the youths. So I was wondering if the same concept lies between the ethnic group issue and which transcends to also an age group issue, where it isn't like enough to represent the whole of Singapore or something like that. Or do you think it's enough, or do you think that's something that transcends all age groups and that all Singaporeans can really relate to, no matter young or old? Or, do you think that this would only be the solution to really coming up with a Singaporean identity in music and arts? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I know of the Sam Willows. They're good. And the other one was Gentle Bones. No, what was it, Ben? Yeah. What was it? Yeah. I'm more familiar with Sam Willows because I've seen them on TV and in some of the videos. Again, it depends on what the context. That means if you are playing pop music, it's different from playing world music. So if you're playing pop music, then your production, there is a certain things that you need to kind of like abide by, the production sound, the harmonies, because then you say, oh, it's guitar-based pop, then there's a certain sound to it. Or it's heavy metal, then there's a certain sound to it. So if you are singing English and you're putting yourself in a big ocean, because when you sing in English, you put it out there, it can be consumed. The music can be bought through iTunes or by anyone in the world. So they need to adhere to a certain format, a certain standard, production-wise, to keep the quality. Let's say if you're making a pair of running shoes, make sure that it's at par with Nike or Adidas. So likewise, if you're making, although it's made in Singapore music, these days the technology is available. You can even get your music mixed in America, sending out digitally. So you record in Singapore, digital recording is cleaner. And then you send it out to America, and that becomes, and then they come back. Like when I was working with a single with a local Singapore talent, Jamil, for his Malay song, we sent the mastering to Ted Jensen, who is actually does the finishing product of an album with Bon Jovi and Green Day and all that. So we spend a bit of money, we bring, and to get just the right quality. So I think it's important for them to keep, because because Singapore is, the demographic is varied, is fractured. We have 4.5 million people, and out of 4.5 million people, we break it down into different groups, ethnic groups, different age, different tastes. So it gets smaller and smaller. So in order for them to go out and representing pop music and also pop music from Singapore, they need to have a certain quality to it. And I know for sure the English listeners are very particular about your diction. So sometimes we think we sing well, and because we think we are, but there are certain inflection that you can detect. Oh, actually they're not really native English speakers. So, and that it's got to do with the branding and the quality of it. Not because it's discrimination. It's like when you eat pasta, make sure it doesn't have belacan in it. So it's the same. So you want to make pasta, make sure it tastes like Italian pasta. So you're making American style pop music, make sure it sounds like that. Unless you're doing kind of ethnic based world music, then you are freer to experiment. I hope that answers that part of your question. The demographic is small. So I think they need to I don't know if there will be the record label or not. It's how to get out there. But again, it's a catch-22 situation, because before you, for example, you want to license your product out, the licensee in that particular country will say, how great is this band in your country? How great is it? How popular are they in Singapore? Before they can actually, if you cannot sell in Singapore, how are you going to sell it? So it's a catch-22 situation. Unless in situations that you can be lucky. There is always in life, there's a factor that is luck, or like you say, rezeki, or it's fate. In the art, sometimes you can have all the right components, the right songs even, but the timing is wrong. Bruce Springsteen said something interesting. You have to be at the right place at the right time, but you have to keep working 99% to be at the right place, so that when the right time comes, you are at the right place. So again, Singapore is 4.5 million people. The Irish Republic of Ireland is about the same. I just checked the other day on Google, about 4.539 million people. Same population. There's more sheep in Ireland than there are people. But what is Irish product? You have U2, worth about 800 million now as a band. And their taxes is paying back to the government and all that. And of course, Guinness Stout. So why is a country with that amount of population is able to produce world-class product that is gone all the way? It becomes a brand that everybody knows. We say Guinness, it's Irish. U2, it's Irish. So again, is how do we get that to that point? It's an open question. I meander a lot, so do correct me if I have not answered your question. All right.
Sorry, hi, I'm Gao Xian.
There's three hands, so maybe we'll do these three questions and then we'll just wrap up because our next speakers are here. Okay?
Yeah, I have one short question, to Prof. Kwok. Yeah, because just now we were talking about moving away from credentials and towards a more holistic form of education, and I was wondering whether do you other than credentials, what other alternatives are there? And comparing our education system to the US model of university admissions, would we ever take a more holistic view of a student other than just grades? Because I'm aware there's this discretionary admission scheme, but as compared to overseas models, it's not that widely applied to our local model. So I was wondering, do you see that a holistic review of a student, say if the student goes through a lot of difficulties in life and things like that, would one day Singapore's education system turn out to be something like what's currently in the US? Yeah.
Okay, I talk to more hands.
My question is for education. Prof. Kwok said something about deep learning. Is it? Yes. Deep learning and critical thinking. And then I realized that like things that actually promote critical thinking and deep learning in us actually just started during like JC life and stuff in general paper, knowledge and inquiry. Like until Sec 3, we're still learning how to write one fine day my bike got stolen. And then like, so I'm just wondering should such topics like general paper and other things, should they like be taught at a like lower grade, like before you are like secondary or something, so that we get to be like more prepared once we grow older? Yeah.
Yeah, this is for education also. So thank you, Professor, for a very great speech, and I really like what you said, and I agree with you very much. So what I want to know is basically a move from what the other two people have actually asked you. So what is actually the way forward to transit? What are some form of government intervention? You are working at NTU right now, right? So and NIE is in NTU, and from what I know from my teacher's friends is that teacher gets money for students' performance, hence the rote learning that they emphasize on the students, like memorize, 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 and that's why the science cannot even get wrong, even though actually it's grammatically more correct than the science answer that they're supposed to. I'm an English teacher anyway, so yeah. How can we move from rote learning to what you actually visualize, like the vision for the future? Because I think what you actually presented was a very, very good model for the future, for a more a better future generation, a future generation which can do critical thinking. What she mentioned just now, maybe we can add on. But further than that, what can we do on a government intervention level, policies, education policies, and so on?
Thank you. I'm conscious of the time, but I'll try to address the three questions very quickly. And the second and third are kind of overlapping. Let me take the last one first. You know, when we say government intervention, sometimes we wish that the government doesn't do more intervention. Yeah. There are times, I think, I just give you an example from the arts, maybe not education. You know, I'm very familiar with the visual arts scene, not as much with the music scene. You know, in a place like Yogyakarta, you have almost zero government help. There's no such thing as National Arts Council. You know? There's no such thing as museums that will put up big shows and so on. But the visual art culture there is totally fantastic. That's true also in Bangkok, for example. So, in fact, there is a place for government policy and for government intervention. So I'll come to that. But there are times whereby we have to sort of move away from the paradigm of, so what should government do? In Singapore, it's pronounced government. What should government do, you know? Because that's like the second nature to us, you know, looking to government to do something, right? And there are times also when the government moves in to do something, but it doesn't necessarily help. Is the problem of the arts only a problem about money, right? To which, if it's about money, we can solve it pretty quickly. We just find more money. But it's not just about money, you see. But let me just come back to the first question and then end up with your two other questions. When you mentioned the US system is a very big system. Worldwide, there are something like 20,000 universities. US, there are several thousand. Now, I just read a report in an article in the New York Times. It is also the admissions, university admissions season right now. And there is among the parents and especially the young people who want to get into the top universities, there is the same anxiety that you find there compared, in relation to here. So it's almost, if you say, I mean, in some ways it's almost universal. You probably can find that in India and China, all this sort of wish to get to the top. And in Singapore, of course, we have dropped this idea of so-called the difference between elite schools and neighborhood school. And there's this slogan, every school is a good school or can be a good school. But we know that it doesn't work that way, right? So your question is about a more holistic criteria for admitting students. In the first place, university may not be for everybody. If let's say climbing the educational ladder means that you are going to be more successful in life by the usual criteria, and there is a great need to find what we call, there's a great need for the creative industries, the cultural industries to develop. You know, perhaps the cultural industries, if you look at all the players in there, they are not distinguished by their university degrees. Many of them don't go to universities, or if they are university, they may not be the ones who are doing academically well. In fact, the correlation could be the opposite, right? Now, for Singapore, okay, I'm not here speaking as a representative of any university. I'm here as, I think, an independent, hopefully critical intellectual. But I think there is interest to free up the criteria. But there's only one issue that we have to think of, which is that when the students come in, they must be able to cope academically. And if it's not their thing to study this subject or that subject, there are other options in life. University is not the only option in life. University is the only option in life because our parents say so, because we think the job market says so. But if you want to go to music, maybe there are other ways to do it, right? Which now leads me to the second question about whether lower levels of education can have those kinds of elements, right? I think this is what we call a pedagogical issue, because you know there's such a thing as foundational learning. Like, for example, if you learn mathematics, you need to do your probability theory, you need to do your calculus and so on. But there could be more creative ways to learn this rather than what we are doing. Now, very quickly, Singapore seems to be very proud of its teaching of science and mathematics in the lower ranks, like primary and secondary. There is a bit of a joke. Apparently, if you go to in the US, there are textbooks called Singapore Math, right? Because apparently Singapore has done well in math, but people are also questioning whether there is one method or one best method to study anything. And maybe that's the trick, you know. The trick is to say that maybe there is no single best method, and you go and experiment and find your method. And that's why you have GP and so on. And then, so I would be a little careful to say, but there can be, I think this cliche, think out of the box, I know it's a cliche, but if we really try to imagine alternatives, one of the problems in Singapore, I mean, just to say as a general statement, maybe it's unfair, is that many things are within boxes. You see, you use the word compartmentalize. The whole question of race and ethnicity is within boxes. We are almost forced to think that we are Chinese, Malay, Indian, others. This is why when art points to the 1960s and maybe even earlier decades, that kind of creativity was lost along the way because the boxes became more and more rigid and more compartmentalized. So thinking out of the box is real. We can do it and we must do it. Coming back, last question about government intervention. I think if the Minister of Education has said this in Parliament, I think I'm not speaking on behalf of him, but it's starting a process. Do you really mean learning for joy, learning for life, learning to gain mastery? Do you really mean that this vertical stacking of qualifications, this hierarchy of grades should not be the most important thing? It's a big challenge to parents. So in some ways, the government intervention has already started, right? And then how do we operationalize that? I think maybe this could be one of your projects. And my friend here will give you the $500. Thank you.
Just let me elaborate on admission issue. I studied at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama for my postgraduate studies, but I do not have a basic degree. But my admission into Guildhall School of Music and Drama in London, which the alumni includes Ewan McGowan, what's his name? The guy, a few actors and musicians. Great, because it's a performance-based university. It's based on my works. It's based on what I've done, songs I've written. I send in all the catalogs, all my songs that I've written, and based on that, I got accepted in. I applied a bit of funding, NAC gave me a bit of money, Compass gave me a bit of money, I was playing in the clubs, saving money, and I was teaching music as well when I just to survive and sustain myself. Again, the criteria was different. It's not like, I don't think I'll be able to do it here in Singapore because, oh, you got no degree. How to do this program, man? So again, it's that, and England being, especially London, again, it's not about the infrastructure. If you've been to London 10 years ago, you go now still, it's the same. The buildings are still the same. The train is still dirty. You still have birds flying around and all that. It's the same. But it's the culture, it's the people, it's the minds that shape. And if you look at it, the literature that's come out of it, the music and all that, it's from there. It's not about there's a new building that's sprouted out to accommodate this kind of industries. It's the people and the culture, the mindset behind it. So I think this is what we need to get into, think outside the box or even get rid of the box. Thank you.
And while the mindset is being changed, believe in yourself. Because you don't depend on the system to do well. If you want to do well, don't do well because of the system. Do well in spite of the system. And you will end up somewhere which you want to end up in.
All right, thank you so much. With that, we've come to the end of our second last panel.